the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Derrick, skirts to the left side, breaks a tackle, and he will take it in. Touchdown!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about.
It is caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, baby, what a play that time. Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up. Big time stand by that defense.
Here we go, Lions, Gray Mains family. This is where we're going to park ourselves in Lions territory, crunch the actual data before we decide whether it's time to break out the champagne or start stress eating a bowl of Amon-Ra St. Brown Honey Nut Cheerios. So if you've been following the Lions franchise for any length of time, you know exactly what happens when you get caught up in all of this excitement, including the excitement from last night, which we're going to break down, that dismantling of the Baltimore Ravens. You know what it's like to get caught up in that excitement without doing your homework first. So we're going to dive into it. My name is Chris Stone. I'm at castahead.net. And if you're one of those Detroit Lions fan who wants to understand what's really happening with this franchise beyond those surface level, bad hot takes and emotional roller coasters, you're exactly where you need to be. And speaking of the place to be, again, my co-pilot for this ride, the Chief Intelligence Officer of Blue Kool-Aid and Cornbread, my man, Dr. Brent Kreider. DVC, what's going on, brother?
The sky looks brighter, food tastes better, drinks taste better whenever the Lions win. And the performance that the Lions put on last night was remarkable. Absolutely what you would expect of a team with the talent that the Lions have to go in and take advantage of a weakened Ravens football club. Just take nothing away from the Lions. The Ravens were down a few key players, but the Lions did exactly what they were supposed to do in inflicting their will on the Ravens all night.
It was absolute, just gorgeous masterpiece, and exactly what you predicted for the most part, almost exactly what you predicted. I mean, listen, I call you the Chief Intelligence Officer of something every week, and I think one week or episode 1, I called you the Chief Intelligence Officer of Lions Optimism, because you always have the sunny side up approach to our Detroit Lions. And I should have listened to you there, because I actually predicted that the Ravens were going to win. But I think we're absolutely going to break it down. Yes, Lions victory it's just everything is just sweet. We've got all the Gray Mains backstage in the house, and we're going to have Dan in as well to break down and crunch a lot of these numbers, especially as it relates to the edge position, which was a big, huge topic going into last night, Brent, because we know that Marcus Davenport is made of glass, and he decided that he was going to sack the quarterback and get hurt. And listen, I feel bad for the man. I know he wants to be healthy, and I know he wants to be out there, and we want him out there as well. But he's on IR. I guess that means at least 4 games. And Dan's going to kind of break that down and what that means for us. But all eyes were on Al-Quadin Muhammad, and he just happened to come in and get 2.5 sacks and get tons of pressure. And it was just a fantastic, just outing of defense, especially in the second half. It was mostly about Brent corralling Lamar Jackson, and they really seemed to have a plan as it related to that. Was just, maybe keep in the pocket, keep him from busting out, and hoping and praying to God Terrion Arnold could, avoid the pass interference penalties, and certainly, try to keep Zay Flowers and these wide receivers under control. Talk to me about your thoughts on the defense from last night, Brent.
I'll start with the linebacking core. I'll tell you what, at the beginning of the season, a lot of folks talked about the need for Jack Campbell to take a step up in terms of his leadership. Anzalone, the holdout, allowed him to completely foment that position on the defense in terms of leading the defense. Last night, he's got blood shooting everywhere, as MCDC was talking about, and he has truly become an elite linebacker. And I think at the end of the year, We talked a little bit about on episode 1 how the Lions could expect to have additional players at all NFL and Pro Bowl players, and I'd be shocked if Campbell continues to play like he's playing if he wasn't the starting outside linebacker. We know how sometimes those things can be political, and the long-toothed gentlemen sometimes get a little bit of an advantage in that. But Jack Campbell, elite football player.
Yeah.
He had 8 solo tackles last night, and it was interesting to note that Lamar talked about the spy that the Lions had put on him, and that they were continuously grabbing his foot.
That was weird. It was sort of like, yeah, they had a
comical.
spy, and I was like, I mean, I kind of saw a spy at some points, but then he was like, yeah, they're hitting my feet. I was like, well, that's not illegal? Last time I checked, to hit the quarterback's feet, is it?
Sure, it's legal. If you can grab his feet.
I mean, it's not illegal, actually.
Right. Yeah, I thought that's what you meant, but just to be clear. So Campbell was spying him the entire night, and it's good that they didn't ask Anzalone to do that, because Anzalone is not. We saw him get faked out a few times. So overall, the linebacking play. Barnes made a couple of fantastic plays. So the linebacking core gets an A+. Secondary, I saw a lot of criticism of Terrion Arnold, and you on the conversation that we were having backstage before the show and in our chat, pointed out that we didn't hear Terrion Arnold's name in the second half. I saw him jawing a little bit with Hopkins on the sideline in the end zone when Lamar was forced to overthrow it.
Yep.
So, I consider that, and I don't know what his overall rating was for the game, but I consider that to be a good news story when you've got a guy who's under all the duress that he's been under, to his name not be called in the course of the game. So the reality being that the secondary, I think Branch dropping 2 interceptions was huge, right? Because
I know he dropped one, but I think DJ Reed dropped one in the end zone as well.
You're right,
which was a little tougher. But the one to Branch, I mean, 99 times out of 100, he's squeezing the ball and heading the other way.
He does, and so two turnovers that we should have had. That late touchdown where, the old saying is the only thing that prevent defense does is prevent you from winning. And the Ravens went right down the field when the Lions went to the prevent, and DK was making comments last night in the chat about that. And so truthfully, you intercept that ball and you stick with what got you to the rodeo. I think that the Lions actually blow them out. So you're talking about the difference between 38-30 and 38-17 is quite significant in the scheme of things. And that's truthfully what the Lions should have done. So there's a lot, as Dan Campbell always says, there's a lot to clean up. They'll get back to the drawing board and they'll work on it. Now, the highlight of the night was the pressure that the defensive line got on Lamar Jackson all night. And frankly, they stuffed the running game all night because of the defensive line's play. And so, at the end of it, AQM, fantastic night. He was all over the field, putting pressure on and playing responsibly in his lanes, holding up on the edge. I saw a bunch of times where Travis Henry, other than his one touchdown run, if you go to the stats and you look at his statistics, that he had one long touchdown run of 28 yards, and then he had 11 other carries for 22 yards. So when you look at the statistics, the defensive line is responsible for keeping Henry locked down and allowing linebackers by maintaining that gap discipline and edge. And the edge, like AQM and Hutch did all night, it forced Henry to cut back into the defense. On the one play that he scored the touchdown, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Derrick Henry is hard to stop for an entire game. And, Derrick Henry, King Henry, whatever you want to call him, is going to get his. And when we saw that early, I think we all were just, it's going to be one of those games. Like, Thanksgiving against Buffalo, we're going to have to outscore this team. we're gonna have to score at least 48 to beat this team. But the adjustments, to your point, I think, there's a lot of credit is being given to AQM players play. And Hutch, early on was sort of invisible and then showed up, obviously punched it out for the fumble, had a sack, lots of low hits on him, but we'll let the NFL sort that out maybe. But Henry's going to get that. And I felt like we need to be giving some credit here to Calvin Shepard and, what he was able to do. I mean, I think a lot of us were wondering if Terrion Arnold was going to play in the second half, and this time, being benched not for a groin injury, but being benched because he was looking bad. And we have some stats here that we want to share, which are some PFF grades that Mike and Dan have provided for us. Arnold's PFF grade for 2025 is 46.8. Marlon Humphrey, 40.6. Terrion, 45.1. Amik, 38.7. Branch, not a great game. Not just the dropped interception, right? I mean, Brian Branch we're used to him having a great game. He made some tackles. Again, PFF grades are what they are. We're using them as a gauge. I don't always think that they're, whatever. Take them for what they are. But the pressures and sacks breakdown is just amazing. Hutch may have been invisible, but he had 9 pressures, 1.5 sacks. Anzalone, you brought up 7 pressures from Anzalone and a sack. AQM, 5 pressures, 2.5 sacks. Tyleek, 3 pressures from Tyleek. Tyleek has had already, in my opinion, is making an impact, when especially in the Bears game when he was knocking down passes. And Barnes had a great game. I mean, you can go right down the line, but a lot of this felt like it was in the second half. And I feel like what Shepard did was make adjustments. And, even Trevor Nowaski, a lot of it had to do with, I felt like this team was so prepared to play against Lamar Jackson, Brent, where, these guys, you see it every week when somebody plays Lamar Jackson. These guys are jumping in the air, they're leaving their feet, they're lunging. But even Trevor Nowaski broke down and was able to make a sack on Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's ready to go. He's ready to just juke the guy and head for 27 yards or whatever in open field. Trevor Nowaski sacked Lamar Jackson. And I think this team was just prepared really well by Calvin Shepard. And I mean, I don't know if your thoughts on we can just go down the line on defense, especially the front seven, and talk about what a great game they all had. But I think we got to give credit to Calvin Shepard for having that team really prepared.
Yeah. Well, before we go to Dan to talk about doing some defensive end analysis,
yeah,
I wanted to say that the numbers that Dan shared and Mike include, Terrion Arnold's 46.8 for the season. People make such a big deal about Marlon Humphrey and what a great player he is. Mm-hmm. And Terrion Arnold's score rating for this year is over 6 points higher at 46.8 than what Marlon Humphrey is. And so I truly believe that Terrion Arnold's in the unfortunate position of the critics are going to be out being critical when he gives up a touchdown or two. But he has come a long way since last season. And I think that what we're going to continue to see is the way that the culture is for the Detroit Lions. He is a fighter just like Dan Campbell. He is a fighter just like Calvin Shepard. And I think that we're going to see Terrion Arnold's performance improve over the course of the year tremendously.
Oh, God, I hope so.
And look, even if it's what it is, I think the Lions still have every opportunity to continue. We talked about responsibilities over the last couple of weeks. We talked about everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of gap integrity and making sure that we're allowing for the linebackers to run. When you can play man-to-man and you can focus your front seven heavily on the run, then you are at a distinct advantage of making teams one-dimensional in the NFL. By far, that's what the Lions were able to do last night. And Terrion Arnold, he is going to be a good player. He is going to continue to improve. He's much better than he was last year. He's got his hands off the receivers, and so I would expect that's going to continue to be, the direction that he trends. Now, the issue, as we saw and we talked about this, we talked about this last week. Andrews killed us again. Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
And I really do believe we get back to the issue of that focus on the run, stopping the run first and foremost. You're gonna give up those ins and outs for the tight ends, unfortunately, unless you've got the wheels to be able to keep up with them in their route running. But that really did hurt us last night tremendously, and we just could not match up, whether it was Anzalone, Barnes, or Jack Campbell matching up with Andrews. Andrews, had a big game. We got to get that fixed. We've got to be able to, when we play the Travis Kelce's later this year, and the Packers tight ends having a magnificent year already. The Bears got a couple young tight ends. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to clean that up. But I will take that all day over Zay Flowers running a 30-yard route and getting a completion against Terrion Arnold. How many completions did we see, whether it was DJ or Terrion Arnold last night, against Zay Flowers running routes down the field? And that in the past, when we played there 2 years ago when we got walloped, that is what happened.
Yeah.
We did not see that last night. So, to the point that I was making about the improved play from Terrion Arnold, I don't think for a second that if Lamar Jackson didn't think that he could get the ball to Zay Flowers, that he would have done it.
That's right.
So I'm of the belief that sometimes no news is good news, and they didn't talk like they were talking about in the pregame show. When you find a weakness, exploit a weakness. That was our old saying at SOCOM and special operations: is find a weakness, exploit a weakness. And if Terrion Arnold had continued to run, in trail route behind Zay Flowers, it would have been a long night for him and a good night for the Ravens.
Yeah, and so I'm going to pause right there because we're getting some comments here that are coming in, and tonight is episode 3 of Lions Gray Mains, and we have a couple of new channels we're going live to tonight. So if you're chiming in on any of these tubes, Facebook, YouTube, which we had in the first 2 episodes, but 2 new live channels. If you're over watching us on Twitch, hello and welcome to Lions Gray Mains. Hit us up in the chat. The chat is open, and we're also live on Twitter, or X. Sorry, I'll always call it Twitter. It just feels so weird to just call it X, but
we're Gray Mains.
Yes, exactly. So we're just always going to call it Twitter. But William Baumgart says, "What about the Browns defense this week?" He's chiming in from YouTube, and so William, we're definitely going to get into this short week's matchup, because I am a little worried about the Browns defense, if I'm being honest. And they newsflash, they just beat the Packers, and so we can't. The Browns are having to come into our house, and we're coming off a major victory. I mean, arguably the greatest regular season win in what I can remember. A very, very long time, definitely in the Dan Campbell era, greatest regular season win for sure.
I would argue going to Green Bay, knocking them out of the playoffs, the Kansas City Chiefs opening game.
But the Chiefs had a few players down, and those were great. Okay, hey, we can argue all you want,
Love the debate, Dan Campbell was undefeated on the road last year. These are the things that a lot of the other stations talk about.
Yep.
That truthfully, even in the pregame, when they were doing their prognostications, all of them picking the Ravens to win the game, they talked about how the Lions were not a good road team. And I said, hello, recent history suggests that the Lions were undefeated last year on the road, I believe, and have continuously played a lot of road games in big situations and won. And so, to me, it didn't surprise me at all that the Lions came in there.
Mike says beating the Vikings to qualify for the playoffs in 2023, another fantastic victory. I mean, The greatest playoff victory I think that we could probably agree on would be the Rams, the first playoff victory. To beat the Rams, to beat Matthew Stafford and the Rams, I would have to say. But regular season, those are all fantastic games for sure.
But to the point of arguing, the counter and that meaning that it was the biggest win, the Ravens don't lose to the NFC at home. We talked about them.
These are the stats I can't stand. It's
Yeah.
so and so doesn't throw an interception on Monday Night Football, or like those kind of stats are just sort of like, when the prime time lights are on, maybe this player is so much better. It's just sort of like, let's look at football as a whole and just kind of say that Lamar Jackson's record against the NFC, Like
That's right.
I could tell you what, our team wasn't thinking about that. I mean, they knew it, but it was like they were thinking about winning, and they were thinking about running the ball and pounding the ball. Let's give it up for the offensive line. I mean, I was a little worried earlier. They were pounding Gibbs into the middle, and he was just getting a yard or two every time, and we were like, okay, we're going to have to get creative with the run. And they brought in your boy Monty and started pounding it, and it was insane. Just what our interior offensive line was able to do. Just some PFF grades last night in the offensive line. Thanks for these, Dan. Taylor Decker, 82.9. Christian Mahogany, 64. Glasgow, 63. Tate Ratledge, I mean, he has gotten so much grief since the Green Bay game where he looked to be blocking Jahmyr Gibbs. Clearly didn't, and we were all like, did we make a mistake on this guy? 91.4 for Tate Ratledge, and of course, Panay, just an outstanding game. The clearing block for the long Monty run with Panay is just a thing of beauty. 98.7. That feels like a typical Panay number right there. But to Dan's point, the waxing moon was last night. The Lions are 10-1 on waxing moons in the Campbell tenure. These are stats that are like, okay, those are fun for social media, but I mean, come on. Come on.
I feel like we're on a Cheers episode with right. Cliff Clavin. It's a little known fact that but anyway, back to it. The truth of the matter is that offensive line was
outstanding,
much criticized, and watching Tate Ratledge blocking right when a defender on the goal line was left unblocked to come straight up the middle. He's come a long way.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you. You guys know I haven't been a huge Graham Glasgow believer. The guy's taken a lot of beatings over the years, and he's had a couple of rough seasons. But he played. I watched the game again today, and I focused on the offensive line, and he's really playing well in the middle and shoring up, making the calls in that offensive line. And it's going to take Rat a couple years, potentially at least a year, to be able to get refine his craft. And who knows, the Lions could very easily go with drafting a center this next offseason. So we got three quality young interior offensive linemen, Mahogany, Ratledge, and you guys know I'm a big Frazier fan. Just because of his mobility,
every
he's
show,
the dancing bear.
Every show, Frazier's gonna. He better be good. He better be good, Brent.
We talk about every offensive lineman. So and the one that really worries me is Decker in terms of his shoulder. But he's just a warrior.
He is. Absolutely. I think he's not going to practice for the rest of the season. I mean, practice during is basically going to be. Trying to remember some Lions history. It's just sort of like you get the week off of practice, just show up and play for the game.
Barry, right? I mean, you weren't allowed to touch Barry.
Yeah.
In the past week, I've seen a couple funny videos, making fun of Wayne Fonts. You can't touch Barry, breathe on Barry, and
Right.
nothing, right? And so I think Taylor Decker is experienced enough to where he will be able to do the walkthroughs before the game day and be just fine. But I'm not so confident about our backup offensive tackles like I would be in a situation where Mahogany, Ratledge, Frazier, Glasgow, you've got some pieces there that you could move around.
Yeah.
But at the tackle position, I still, even above defensive end, outside, rush outside linebacker, that still concerns me more than anything is the health of Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. And so, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that our offensive line can hold up and play like they played last night. Because if they play like they played last night, we can match up against that formidable Philadelphia Eagles front four. And the question that William asked earlier about the Browns, pivoting to that just a little bit the Browns have a really, really good defensive line.
Yes, they
very, very good defensive line, good linebackers. And so, we have got to make sure this week that we play with the same enthusiasm and the same fire. And over the course of a 17-game season, it is hard. It is hard every day to get up and go to work and be fired up about it. And so, but the Lions have an incredibly difficult road schedule, and they have got to take every opportunity to win the games that are winnable. And so, this game against the Browns, the game against the Bengals with Joe Burrow out, you've got to bring your A game against those teams. And so, the Browns, the Bengals, and then I watched the Chiefs against the Giants. They are certainly not the Chiefs of the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Don't you feel like they're going to get it together though? I mean, maybe the luck's run out, maybe.
Jones is a machine. I mean, that guy Jones in the middle of that defensive line, Chris Jones is just a machine. He is huge. He's tough as nails. And then you surround him with some pretty decent players on the defensive side. Where the Chiefs lack, is their ability to keep Mahomes upright. And so Mahomes is under a lot of duress. That Chiefs offensive line is definitely not what it was a few years ago. And so the reality is that I think that going into the break, we should realistically have every expectation that we'll be competitive in all of those games. The Browns game is definitely winnable. Our defense needs to play the way that they played this week, and then cut down on the errors, cut down on the small mistakes that were made that caused the Ravens to score 30 points. Take advantage of turnovers. Take advantage of the situation where they can play the Bucs, and both teams. That's really for top seeding in the NFC, right there with the Eagles. So you've got to win the games that are winnable in the NFL, especially if you're looking at trying to have home field advantage in the playoffs.
Yeah. I have a prediction, Brent. When we play the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday, October 5th, the starting quarterback will not be Jake Browning. It'll be Russell Wilson. That's my prediction. But you got nothing. You got nothing to say on that. But Jackson Dart was named the starter of the New York Football Giants today, and I think at this point it's like you're making that move. Cut your losses. And if there's a team that could use Russell Wilson, there you go, Cincinnati Bengals. That's my. Hey, listen. I guess this is a show where we're not supposed to have hot takes, and I just Mike says they're too cheap, though. Mike says the Bengals are too cheap. He's not wrong.
They are.
Well, if they're they got all their money tied up in 3 players, right? And one player, everybody thinks that we should sign who plays edge, which is what I want to transition this conversation because this is what the show's about, and we're almost we're halfway through tonight's show, and the show is about edge because. And I'm glad we have Dan with us tonight as well to talk about this because going into the game last night, Brent, like we said, we all were like, oh, here we go. Davenport's out. This is, we should have signed Zadarius Smith. We didn't get, Clowney. How come we didn't get Trey Hendrickson? Micah Parsons went here. Like, all these people are making all these moves, right? And then we get Tyrus Wheat, and everybody plays their sad trombones, right? But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get Dan Keener is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Dan, thanks for joining us from Ford Field tonight. But I wanted to bring you on because you're the guy that knows this stuff in terms of caps and what is realistic, because everybody sees these names and they think it's fantasy football or they think it's Madden and they're trading with their friends and they can get all these players, and why not grab this person because he's a name, but they don't see all of these things. And then we saw what happened last night, and all of a sudden Brad Holmes looks like we thought he was, as smart as he was, and has this player that, all of a sudden, nobody knew about a couple of years ago when he showed up for the Lions. Like, who is this guy from the Colts? He's been in the league for 7 years. Like, what's the deal? And he's a perfect fit for our defense and was a major factor in a major win for us. So from the edge position, Dan, I'd love to get your thoughts on, the Lions and, if they're going for somebody, right? If they're going to take a shot at somebody, what's realistic, and what do you think's going to happen?
I mean, I think the short answer is no. They're not going to take a shot at anybody,
Okay.
and it's kind of twofold. We have the cap money, but we also have needs coming up to sign some folks. We have $28.9 million in cap right now, so we can absorb a contract, but we also have Hutch to re-sign and multiple other players that, they want to get them re-signed. You can use the money and either carry it over or restructure this year and use some of that cap this year towards the end of the year. And repeatedly, Brad Holmes has said he doesn't like to push himself against cap where he's forced to make a change or, adjust a contract mid-year. He wants to have that leeway. And last year was a great case in point. I mean, how many people did we have on IR where we had to continue to just throw bodies at the team? And every time you do that, it's another mill. It's a mill here, a mill there, because every one of these veterans, they're a minimum $755,000 against the salary cap. So I think Brad is basically saying, you know what, he actually likes his team. And I put it in chat a few minutes ago, but if you go look at it, there's reinforcements on the way. You have on Monday the 29th, and this doesn't mean that these folks are going to be ready to come back and play and hit the practice field and play the next week, but eligible to come off of the various lists on the 29th at the defensive line are Aleem McNeil, Josh Paschal, and Levi Onwuzurike.
Onwuzurike, yes.
There you go. So you have four guys there that could come off. One of them's an edge in Paschal. He's on the non-football injury list. We still don't know what it is, but he had some sort of unidentified surgery. Haven't heard a lot about him by the folks with the boots on the ground at Allen Park, but you look at that list, and it's kind of, I think Brent touched on this earlier, it's similar to the offensive line. Jamarco Jones is also eligible to come off the reserve injured list on that same Monday the 29th. Skipper has been in and out of practice. They never put him on a list, but he is back practicing and healthy again. So all of a sudden, that backup tackle position is now kind of strengthened by who's sitting on our practice squad. But that's kind of the short answer why I don't think defensive end is going to be a target for Holmes. But then you start saying, okay, well, what happens if somebody gets hurt? God forbid Hutch gets hurt, or maybe Muhammad he has these two great games and they just they figure out how to handle him and he becomes, ineffective for the rest of the year. So I guess that brings up the question is, what do you do at the trade deadline? There's several tiers of players you maybe can target. You can go all in, this is the pie in the sky, the dream guy. You can go an all in player. You can go get someone that's logical and affordable. Generally, that person's going to be somebody that maybe has, 1 year after this season left on their contract or an expiring contract. good measurables. They have been productive, healthy, things like that. And then you have that like bargain basement hired gun type guy where you're just like, okay, this guy is just he's been a great player in the league. He's at the end of the rope. And, as they said in Moneyball, I want to squeeze every last ounce of baseball out of you that they said in that movie. Well, you want that guy and you want to bring him in and get the last ounce of his defensive end or edge prowess onto the Lions, onto a winning team, and away from, say, a bad culture fit or a bad team. So I've kind of, before Muhammad had his breakout game last night, I kind of put together a list, and I'll go through them really quick here. But
Yeah.
so the pie in the sky guy, I was tempted. I was looking at Miles Garrett. I'm like, the thing is, he just signed this massive deal. We're not paying him and Hutch the same amount of money.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. He's over 30. Hutch needs to be paid. That's not happening. So I did end up settling on Trey Hendricks, and the reason I did is because he's only signed for the end of the year. So he is basically if you give up we don't have a third round pick, I don't believe, but if you give up even a second rounder for the guy and he comes in and he gives you the ability to win a Super Bowl, when he does not re-sign, either he re-signs with us or he re-signs with someone else, you're going to get a comp pick out of him next year. So that does offset the sting of giving up a second rounder to maybe get him.
Interesting.
So, think about it. You give up a second, you get a fourth back if he doesn't sign a massive deal because he is 31. So you gave up a third to get him for a rental for the rest of the season. He does have, as of today, about 13 million left on his deal. And again, I think I said we have a little over 29 mil. So we could absorb him without any problem and still have 13 million left over, right? And so it is feasible to do that. Sorry, flipping through tabs here. And he's been productive. He's not leading the league, but he is one of the better defensive ends this year. But he still has some, he's been productive this year still, but he's been leading the league the last couple of years and stuff. Now, why would you not do that? It does cost some picks, and Brad is very, he is not afraid to give up picks for his guy, but this is a rental. This is not,
right.
He's done that in the past, but it's always like late round picks. A fifth, sixth, seventh, no problem. He'll give that up for all day for somebody just to bring him in for a little bit. But, a third, a second, I think he's pretty loath to do that unless he absolutely has to. And again, if we do that, we're not going to re-sign him. I mean, we're just not going to pay him the massive amounts of money that he wants at 32 next year, with Hutch needing his contract. And again, all those guys are coming back. Davenport, Paschal, McNeil. You're looking at 2 to 4 weeks most likely for all those guys. Maybe 6 weeks for Davenport. If he was as tough as Spielman, who had a rolled up ball of a peck in his chest in 1995, he'd be out there playing. But they don't do that anymore.
No,
Spielman was a different breed. So I think that's a 0% chance we would go after Hendricks. The guy I chose is kind of a logic and affordable one, and this might surprise you. Harold Landry of the Patriots.
Really?
So he was brought over by who's their coach now? He was Tennessee's coach, former Ohio State. Vrabel, yeah. So Vrabel brought him over from Tennessee. He's been very durable and productive, and he's cheap this year. He has, I think, like a $3 million salary this year, because he just signed with them. The problem with him and the cons is that he does have $26.5 million left on his contract between base salary and roster bonuses in 26 to 27 combined. So it's not a ton. He's 29 years old, so he's not like past his prime. It's not a ton of money. But again, you're getting into, do you really want to pay this guy? And my issue with him, just being frank, because we've had bad experiences, he's kind of a Trey Flowers clone, right? That New England style defensive end, because Vrabel runs the same
right?
defense.
I mean,
he's about 250, 6'3", 250. He's pretty much like Muhammad. He's almost the same size as him. I don't know if he has the same. I think he has long arms, but they play well in the system. I don't know how well they play out of the system.
Yeah.
You know, Flowers got a bad rap here. He was productive, but he wasn't putting up double-digit sacks for us. But he was getting, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9 every year while he was here. I think maybe that would be, maybe a 33% chance of that happening. So another guy I kind of had as a bonus logical was Jalen Phillips of the Dolphins. I've seen a lot of noise about him. My issue with him, he is cheap. It'd be a low comp pick, probably a 6th or 7th, to get him. But he's on an expiring contract, but it's his expiring 5th-year rookie deal. So he earned enough to get the 5th-year option, but he just hasn't been able to show it on the field because he's hurt. Like, you think Davenport's hurt? This guy's been hurt more than Davenport the last 3 years.
Oh, geez.
So he'd be a concern from that standpoint there. And then he'd obviously want to get, so you do the comp pick coming.
He's bigger. He's leaner. He's 6'5", 263. Yeah, he's bigger.
Again, yep. Yeah, when he is healthy, if you look at his stats, when he is healthy, he is a very productive player. But again, your best ability is
he's perfect Brad Holmes pick then, right? I mean,
he's a clone of Davenport. If you're going to replace Davenport, replace him with the guy that does the same thing he does.
Oh, man.
So just to wrap up my piece here, the last guy, and you guys might think I'm crazy on this. The bargain bin, hired gun. The guy I say, you know what, this would be a guy you go get because he's got one last ride in him and he maybe wants to come and try and win a Super Bowl. I'll give you guys just throw out a name, Brent, Chris, throw a name out there who you think I'm talking about.
Is he currently employed in an NFL roster?
Judon?
He is currently on an NFL roster. He would fit right in with us old farts on this show here.
Well, I was watching the Cardinals game the other day and the Dolphins game. Judon comes to mind.
Yeah, it's not Matthew Judon. I did toy around with maybe him, but I just he's kind of thin and not there.
Cameron Jordan.
That's it. You just nailed it.
Well,
Cameron Jordan.
I'm just repeating what Mike Terry just said, so I can't take credit.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned it to Mike. I don't know. But here's the thing about Cam Jordan. The guy's 36. I think he's maybe missed like 3 games in his double-digit NFL career. He's very durable. He is a class player and a class person. He has been the Saints, one of their, the folks they put forward for their awards for, volunteering and programs like that. He's one of those folks out there. And here's the best part. We'd owe him over $1 million the rest of the year. As of today. He's on the last year of his contract. Dan Campbell knows him because he coached with him. He was a player with the Saints when Campbell was there. In his defense, it's all rooted in that Dennis Allen defense that they all learned from. And he would fit right in with the scheme. He would give us a bigger presence on the right defensive end side, which I gotta be honest, I thought Muhammad played well and held up against the run pretty well. I was worried they're going to run at him because he's only 250, but he held up pretty well. The only negative on him is that his production has slipped the last probably 2 to 3 years, but you're talking about slipping from consistent double-digit sacks to like 8, in your mid-30s. So if Holmes is going to go out and make a trade, get someone familiar that's not a turd, that is productive, that you can count on, that you know is going to be a good presence in your locker room, this is the guy that I say, hey, he would be a good fit. I'll throw him before Muhammad had his great game last night. So.
Hang on a sec. Yeah, and looking at his stat, I mean, the stats are like he's done nothing but play at New Orleans like for 100 seasons. And to your point, he had 8.5 sacks in 2022. In 2023, 2 sacks, played 17 games. 4 sacks in 2024, played 17 games. So yeah, production definitely down. But yeah, it does feel like from a human perspective, he does feel like, boy, that'd be a good fit for our team, because that's a big thing for them. Culture is obviously a huge deal for Dan, and he does feel like a fit there. Yeah, I mean, listen,
keep in mind his production decrease has coincided with the Saints having to eat Drew Brees' massive cap hit and basically gone into cap purgatory. So that team has not been the same team. And, Jordan has been a prototypical pros pro, right? He's not going to quit on them. He's going to play it. But, he doesn't have the people around him anymore. There was nobody opposite him for, a couple of years there. And, if he's the guy that you can double team and prevent from doing damage, because there's nobody else on the roster you can pay, because they're all just, very cheap players while they're trying to navigate that massive Drew Brees cap hit, then, and the team's not winning, that's where a change of place might help him, and he's deeply rooted in that community, but, leaving for 4 months just to come and chase a championship, he's already had a taste of one, and that might be something he might be willing to do.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so to recap, Trey Hendrickson, Harold Landry, Jalen Phillips, and Cam Jordan. Interesting. I mean, I like the Cam Jordan one, I think, more than any of them. I feel like,
as do I.
I feel like, why not? Like, it does. I mean, you see good teams will do this every once in a while. Pull this guy in and be like, okay, let's get him a ring here on another team. Likable guy. You see that often. Brent, what are your thoughts here on those edge options that Dan broke down for us?
I think that there's little chance that the Lions are going to make a trade for a defensive end.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a small chance. That's right. 1 in a million. So you're saying there's a chance, right?
Exactly.
So what I think Dan did a great job of doing is detailing what's going to happen with the injured list players that are going to be coming back. Barring any additional injuries, you add in Aleem McNeil, Josh Paschal, and you mentioned somebody else there.
Levi.
Onwuzurike.
Well, Levi was out for the season, but
he was on IR, but he can. Let's pull this up on the site. By the way, go to the Greymanes.
He's available after 4 weeks.
thegreymanes.com, where you can get all this information. Let's see. Let me see if this is going to work for me now. I don't think it's working for me.
Yeah. Well, that just adds to the to my argument that it's not likely that they'd make a move.
Yeah, Levi is out for the 2025 year. I'll update
Oh, he
the
is.
site.
Okay. All right.
His ACL injury, I guess, happened deep enough into the season. He's going to miss the whole year. I thought he was. And again, those are eligible to come off the list dates. Doesn't mean they're ready.
Great point. Yeah, I think that's we automatically think. I mean, do we know what Paschal's injury really is, and are they game shape? Like are they?
Yeah.
So we don't know. And if Josh Paschal becomes active for the Bengals game, for instance, I mean, how many reps is he actually getting? And they're probably not going to. It's going to be interesting to kind of see. And Aleem McNeil, I guess, announced last week that he was 93% healthy. So I don't know. By now he should be 95.7%. Dan, what do you think? I mean, what's the?
Yeah.
I mean,
I do have an update on Paschal's injury too. I forgot about this actually. He had a benign mass removed from his shoulder. He has skin cancer.
Oh man.
So melanoma. So Campbell indicated that he is targeting an early September return. So if he's going through his rehab and his has healed properly, hasn't spread, then he should be eligible here. This is late September, but he should be eligible to be ready to start practicing, at least when I think they get a 4-week window to practice, to be activated. So that that window opens on that date that they're eligible to come off the list. So it could be up to 4 more weeks, and if they don't make it, then they put them immediately on IR for the rest of the year. So essentially, you've got a 4-week window after your 4-week stint to be activated before you have to sit the year out.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Aleem and how that affects everything, right? I think, it was interesting to see Wingo a healthy scratch for the game last night. Doesn't bode well, but we'll need him eventually. But Aleem coming back, I think, is definitely going to help the pass rush in general. I mean, he's a great run stuffer as well. But there's no question we need some interior pass rush as well alongside of Tyleek, who's had a fantastic season. So Mike Terry is chiming in with his list, which I think we should chew on here as well. Dan, I'm interested to get your take on this. Mike Terry is all in. Is Will Anderson Jr., which, okay, that is really going all in. That would be outstanding.
This guy, seriously.
Right. I mean, I know the Texans haven't looked good, but I don't know if they're ready for a fire sale just yet, or trade or whatever, to trade with one of the best defensive players in the league. But he does have. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pop this in. He's broken down. He's got 4 years left on the deal. Obviously young. There's a lot of pros. The cap hit. He's got Cam Jordan as a logical and affordable. That's cool. And then he's got Judon here as a hired gun bargain basement as well. I just don't. There's something about Judon that is just, I don't know. I don't feel like there's anything like. I feel like he's had a couple of, really good seasons, and then I don't know. He just feels like a name to me. Has he done anything? Did he do anything for the Falcons? Has he done anything this season? I don't know. I'm just not, I feel like he's just a placeholder. That's just me.
He had 5.5 sacks last year in 17 games for the Falcons. So
half as many as Al-Quadin had last night. Or, Al-Quadin had half as many.
Quarterback hits to me are almost as important as sacks, and his have dropped the last few years. He's only done 9, 23, and 24. He only played 4 games on 2023 because he was injured, of course. But he's averaged 20 to 30 quarterback hits in his prime, and was approaching double-digit sacks almost every year. So, but he has definitely slipped. 33. I don't know when his birthday is. He might be 34 mid-season, but he's a Grand Valley State guy, so
Oh yeah.
6'3", 275. He's significantly larger than he used to be. I'm pretty sure when he came out, he was in the 250 range, maybe even 240 range. He's more of like a rush linebacker.
He was. Now, look, here's the reality, guys. The Lions have got to make some decisions on who they intend to retain. We've got very limited salary cap space for this year and next year. We got 28 million this year, and we've got 14 million for next, 15 million, just under 15 million. And so you're talking about $43 million over the next 2 years. Would you sign a player for $10 million, for $20 million, knowing that you're going to have to give up some of the players that you're going to have to give up? Or, Dan, I think you mentioned this before in our chats. Goff is going to be ripe for a renegotiation. You could front load a big deal. Give him a big signing bonus to restructure his deal, because I think his salary cap hit is upwards of 50-something million dollars.
$69.6 million next year, but that's because he has a $50 million base salary, which will almost surely be renegotiated, and used as a way to right size the salary cap more or less. He has a couple of those, already has a couple of those void years. I think one at the end, but he's got a base salary of $55 million in 26, $40 million in 27, and $39 million in 28. Now the cap's going to go up. I think you pointed out multiple times, Brad. We should expect to see a 12 to 14% increase minimum every year. And you look at the cap percentage, and he's not even none of the years out there for projected cap is he taking up more than
That's right.
23.6% of our cap, and that's in 2026.
Yeah. And so that the point that I was going to make, you just touched on, and that is that even if we don't renegotiate Goff's deal, I think we can still re-sign Brian Branch and Aiden Hutchinson. We've already got JMO locked up. So there's some wiggle room there. And I'm not a fan like you of the void years. I think, that bill is going to come due.
I
But
hate the Warriors.
if you look at, and I think the NFL will end up banning it at some point, but if you look at what the situation is over the next 3 to 5 years, the Lions are in decent position to be able to keep their core players together. And then to you guys' argument, it's do we go after a rush defensive end, knowing just knowing that we could get for $9 million, you could get one sack over the last 6 games last year, right? And so I'm not a big fan of spending all that cash on guys who are getting 3 sacks a year over 17 games, or 4 sacks, or even 6 sacks. I'm of the opinion that it seems Brad Holmes is a big fan of, and that is going with the youth movement, retaining your own players, and looking at this as we are good enough to win the Super Bowl with the existing roster. And I think that's been the argument that Brad Holmes, and he in his press conferences, he actually laughs at the questions when folks keep saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. And the balance that the Lions have in terms of talent across all the levels of the defense, safeties, if you could retain Branch and keep the best safety tandem, you got Jack Campbell. Anzalone's going to be gone after this year. You got Hutch and Ali McNeil, who McNeil will also be ripe for a renegotiation. But the bottom line is you've got to maintain some semblance of balance across all the levels of the defense in terms of how you apportion your money. And so I think if we're going to make a trade, make a trade for somebody, then it's probably going to be much later in the season, and it's going to be if we don't get the production out of the young players. If you remember last year, I thought when push came to shove, Nowaski playing on the edge in those last few games played fantastic. We were in that Vikings game, all those young folks that are running around now as backups, and they'll be given an opportunity to prove themselves over the course of this long season. And so it'll be interesting to see what Holmes ends up doing. Because as much as I'd love to say we could get Anderson from the Texans, I mean, that would be awesome. Or, the Bengals, Trey Hendrickson, that would be amazing. But I just don't see it happening.
No.
And I really, really don't think it's an argument even worth making, because then, that dramatically alters the keep your core and your foundation above all else. And that's what I think MCDC and Brad Holmes' motto is retain your core. And the Lions have more talent by position than any other team in the NFL. Maybe the Eagles, but the Eagles have lost some players this year, as we know. So it's a really great debate, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But this Detroit Lions roster is good enough. If we can get lucky and stay a little bit more healthy this year, the Lions can be competitive to win it all.
So, if I don't mind, Chris,
Yep.
switching the subject really quick to that free agency thing, it
Mhm.
just dawned on me. I just realized I put two lists in the chat there. The longer list is next year's free agent list, and what it just dawned on me is that Brad Holmes has very quietly made not next year a non-issue for your core key players. There is not a single core key player on that 2026 free agent list that is a must re-sign, because he has gotten Jamo signed, and how many did we do this year? But there's nobody on that list. I'm looking at it. The most important person on there is probably Reader at 32. And then going down it, you've got the injured guys. You've got Levi. You've got Paschal. You've got Muhammad. But he's going to be 30 to 31, right? Pat O'Connor. There's none of the youngsters on this list.
Yeah, that is incredible. It looks like the younger players are the ones that were kind of like, Levi O, it's 28.
Yep.
Roy
and he's
Lopez.
already replaced them.
Yeah.
Tyleek, he's replaced these guys because they
Yes.
really haven't, they were third-round picks, second-round picks, and they just really haven't blossomed. And he's gone out and already got their replacements in
Yep.
Tyleek Williams and
Great
some of these
point.
other guys. Click on the next list, though, the third one down that I pasted. That's the 2027 list. This is the money list. Hutchinson, Gibbs, Laporta, Branch. There's 4 guys in there, and those 4 guys between this season and before that list hits, those 4 guys are all going to get re-signed. Jack Campbell, that's 5. So Jack Fox, he's a little older. Obviously, he'll be in his 30s, but that's where the key guys. So it's kind of like a Fortune 500 company that keeps refinancing their debt. They just keep kicking it down the road when it comes due. So they spread it out over more years down the road. Well, that seems to be what Brad Holmes is doing here. He has managed. Aiden next year is going to be playing on his 5th-year option. So regardless of what they do and what kind of money they give him, he's still going to be playing under that 5th-year option next year. And any extension is going to be added to the end of that 5th year, but it's going to be spread over the entirety of the 5th year plus whatever the extension is. Gibbs, you're going to see him. You're going to see Campbell. You're going to see Laporta and Branch. They're all going to get re-signed at some point. And this is why you don't go out and burn long-term money. But it does give us some wiggle room between this year and next year, especially if we allow Goff to restructure his deal. And some of the other guys next year, the other candidates would be St. Brown. He's got a $27.5 million base salary next year. And McNeil's got 23 at almost $24 million base salary. Those guys are guys that you can pull money from them to put it into the salary cap. And, as Brent said, we're 25 million over next year already with only 38 guys signed. So it's a necessity. It's not it's not going to be a, can we do it? It's going to be, we have to do it. But between those 3 guys and even Taylor Decker, 14.9 million, there's money to be had there. So.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about kicking the can down the road and spreading it out like that. Isn't that kind of what good teams do though? They seem to do. I mean, it's like you can't pay them all, and it's kind of a nice problem when you have so many talented players that you've drafted well, like we have, and we're naming all of these players because Brad Holmes nailed these drafts to get these players at that level. And that we don't have to worry about it, And I look at this list, and you see Graham Glasgow on this list. There's just no way that's happening.
I don't think he makes it to next year, to be honest with you.
And Brock Wright, we'll see what happens there. But I mean, I just think, that's Jack Fox on that list is interesting, just from a standpoint of like, yeah, he's great, but is he that great? We'll
minimum
see.
wage punter.
Two years down the road, does it matter right now though? That's the thing. They could give him an extra year and keep him around. Brad's going to get the best football he can get, but he also is very conscientious of his cost to production ratio that he gets out of these guys. He's not going to keep guys around. We've seen that already. A guy that's going to happen to a certain point that's going to really be upsetting to a lot of fans is going to be Kirby Joseph. The next probably 2 to 3 years, Kirby's going to get let go because he's going to be cost more than he is worth unless he keeps being productive. He was virtually non-existent yesterday. Now, I think that part of that was the scheme. I think he was playing center field all game. He was the last line of defense. And they basically took him out of the plays. So that's why we never heard his name.
Yeah. I mean, there was lots of times where, they were coverage sacks. Couldn't even believe that I was typing that or saying that out loud in a Lions game that we had coverage sacks with Lamar Jackson at quarterback where he was just they were containing him and corralling him and there was nobody open deep. He hit some nice passes, especially to Andrews underneath, but they are typically a deep threat, a team. He is always chucking it. Zay Flowers always seems and Bateman, they always seem to get open. So there is something to be said for a player like that, playing safety, which is being the last line of defense, to your point, Dan, is your job sometimes, and you're not going to show up on stats. You just happen to keep the quarterback from throwing to the guy that is in front of you. and that doesn't
Everybody
show
does
up
their
anywhere.
job.
Yeah.
The defense will work. It's when guys start freelancing, when the defense breaks down, and that's the same on offense. If everybody does their block, the play should work. If someone messes up and misses a block, it's going to blow the play up. You know, and something you said earlier, Brent, you're kind of bagging on the linebackers a little bit about the coverage sticking with guys. I one of the things I noticed is that it felt like most of the big plays were the guys that were wide open, and there wasn't anybody near them, because if you notice, it's when we did this basically jailhouse blitz and we sent the linebackers, and there was what they were asking the safeties to do is to sprint back and cover the area where the linebackers vacated. And by the time they were getting there, Lamar can, all he needs to do is take one quick little dance to his left or right, and he can just fire it in there, just flick it in there. And he was hitting Andrews and Bateman a ton last night when we were blitzing. And I'd be interested to see the stats on what he was on non-blitzes versus blitzes. But clearly we blitzed a ton, because Anzalone, I was complaining, and Mike can attest, I was complaining at halftime, like, where is he? I saw him one time when he got tackled on a pass rush blitz to the outside that should have been called. And I'm like, he wasn't even on the stat sheet in the first half. I think he had one tackle the entire time, and he showed up there. By the end of the game, the guy's sitting there with the second most tackles, and I think he had a bunch of pressures too and a sack. So, that second half, they just made their adjustments, and all of a sudden the guys started getting home, and Jackson was seeing ghosts. So good stuff as far as I'm concerned. They warmed down on both offense and defense.
And if we can maybe get something from the NFL to tell us how to define a low block, if we see that review of Brian Branch just kind of like falling backwards, and I think they look for 32 on the field, and if they see something that looks like something, they're going to call it. He just is starting to be that player that gets that rep, unfortunately.
You play hard, and you get, sometimes you make a great play, sometimes you make a mistake.
Right.
That was not a mistake. That was He did what he was supposed to do. He hit the guy right in the belly, but he was going down when he did it. I think they picked up earlier in the game, they picked up a chop block. I think it was our game, might have been an earlier game in the day, where someone had come in and they hit him high right at the waist, but they thought it was a chop block, but they ended up picking it up after conversing on it. So and don't get me started on some of the calls. I will go to my grave and say that was a missed field goal. That was not made. Oh my
gosh. Yes.
There's no way that was made. It was very clear. They said the rules were at least half the ball had to be over the goalpost, and part of the ball, maybe a quarter inch of that ball was over the goalpost. If
we've got guys lining up for 70-yard field goals in the NFL, we have to raise the goalposts too. I mean, these legs are like we're only going to be breaking records from this point forward. And Jake Bates almost got the NFL record, which would have been sweet against the Ravens in their house, because we know Justin Tucker got the record against us in our house to win a game that made me say lots of bad words. Gentlemen, this has been an outstanding game. Dan, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like you made me smarter, which is very hard to do.
I'll try and make myself available a little more often. The first couple sessions, I just they had some conflicts I had to get through, but yeah, I do enjoy it. It was a great time tonight. Thank you both.
Absolutely.
Thanks for bringing me in, and I'll see if I can get myself a little better camera, because although me being a little fuzzy is probably not a bad thing, as Brett was poking at me a little bit earlier. I'm like,
we all have fun poking at each other, guys.
That's
but
right.
At the end of the day, we all have a great love for the Detroit Lions, and I am so excited about next week. I'll be in Detroit for the Browns game, and then all the home games from here on out, I'll be there for them. I look forward to getting Mike up for the Bucks game, or down for the Bucks game, and then and on and on. It's going to be a really exciting year, because I think the Lions have an axe to grind with everybody.
They should. Never seen a team get so disrespected after only losing one regular season game the year before. You'd think that that the entire infrastructure of the team left. Two guys left.
Yeah.
I almost forgot, guys, and then we'll sign off from here. So those of you who go to the graymains.com, all the 4 gray mains, 3 that are on the screen and 1 who's backstage, Mike, do picks every week, and we'll be doing the Browns picks. When are those due again, Dan?
Usually put them in on Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
If I close the day Thursday, I'll get them up on Friday.
So
morning.
I have a sneaking suspicion everybody's going to pick the Lions, but we'll see what how we're doing on scores. But I have to share the screen here because this is all on the graymanes.com. I think I'm getting smoked here, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm definitely getting smoked. Last week, Dan picked Lions 38-34. Brent picked Lions 34-31. And Mike and I picked the Ravens. I picked 41-34, and Mike picked 31-24. And so, yeah, I'm not doing too well this season, but we're inviting you. So if you want to join us and be a guest picker on the Gray Manes, you're welcome to do it as well, and we'll make a way. We'll figure out a process for that for you to either join us on the show as a guest, in the chat, or in some way, shape, or form. And there we go.
If you nail the score and you live in the state of Michigan, Mike will come to your house and mow your grass for you as a prize.
Nice. Nice. The 2 fan says, "Sorry, Chris, play that 12 string." Yeah. So yeah, I'll play Forward Down the Field for you. I'll play the Lions fight song for you. The 2 fan.
Lions.
That's right. All right, folks. Thanks for chiming in and joining us. And as always, go Lions.
Busted outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Derrick, skirts to the left side, breaks a tackle, and he will take it in. Touchdown!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about!
It is caught.